Hi, I'm Deep,
Jose.
and we're your token theater friends, people who love theater so much that next week I'm seeing 7 shows.
Girl, welcome to my weekend. Is this going to be your first 7?
7 this season.
Oh.
It's my first full week this season, which means the fall's ramping up and there's too much going on.
Who's going to be baking all the cakes in New York?
Exactly. No cakes for you. We're just going to get skinny. And speaking of fall shows, we have a wonderful guest for you today. Who did we talk to?
Our guest today is the wonderful Javier Muñoz, who you might know from Hamilton and In the Heights and like a bunch of other amazing things. He's currently doing a play, not a musical.
What?
I know, right? It's called The New Englanders at Manhattan Theater Club. So let's go check the interview out. Hi everyone, we are here today with Javier Muñoz. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Can you tell us about the New Englanders that you're doing right now?
Yes, it is at MTC at Stage 2. It is a small group of us, 90-minute play based in New England. Without giving away too much, there are multiple themes happening. The search for purpose and your place in the world, as well as defining what defines you that's external and how do you define yourself within the context of racial relations, of sexual identity, of your personal relationships, the environments we work and live in. And how do you pursue what you're pursuing with all those obstacles and all those questions?
I feel like one of the themes of the play also is like middle aged and when you hit that
Very
certain
much.
age, looking back on your life and
I don't know what you're talking
yeah.
about.
I mean, we can't tell how old you are.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
But was that one of the reasons that drew you to the script? Was there something in that?
Absolutely, yeah, because there's not a lot, so much is written right now for, and wonderfully so, for our younger generation. And I think it ebbs and flows. I think we have times where then what's being created or revived is for us more middle-aged folks. And but it's wonderful to find a piece that is so it's fingers on the pulse of everything that we're talking about, everything that we're living through right now, and have it be an older cast, and it's really kind of wonderful. And yeah, that did draw me to it. Absolutely. It's more comfortable to just play my own age.
I know,
but,
yes, you're not a young teenager in Hamilton anymore.
Where's the wig? Okay.
It's so strange for people to think of you and you not singing. And
I know.
Yeah, and I wonder, did you learn a script with some melody?
But this is what I did first. This is like,
Right.
I mean, in high school and in my first sort of few years working professionally, acting is all I did. I didn't really discover musical theater till later, and I mean, I loved it and I watched it and I did musicals, but as far as what I wanted to pursue, I wanted to pursue just acting, just straight theater. And then I got to dancing, and then I got, really immersed in musical theater, and that's been my entire career. And that was also something that drew me to this, was the fact that it's just a play.
Mm-hmm.
And just to get to, because it's something completely different. A book and a musical isn't where most of the conflict happens or where most of the discoveries happen. They do, but it's not the bulk of it, right? It relies heavily on the musicality, the actual songs themselves, the duets, the all of those elements, right? Adding to the journey of a character and the telling of the story. This, a straight play is just, you've just got to be listening and you've got to respond, and it's got to be in the and I love it, the very, very small details.
Mm-hmm.
That's the juicy work, and that's, I love, if I could just do straight plays, I do love my musicals, but if I could just do straight plays, I would, they're another beast, and they're so much fun.
Yeah. So send you all the straight plays.
Please.
Right. it's so funny. So when I first read the summary for New Englanders, I read, oh, it's about middle-aged gay couple sending their daughter off to college, and I'm like, oh, so Javier's playing a husband, and then I realized, oh wait, no, you're playing the lover who tempts one of the man in the relationship to like leave his husband potentially, and it made me think of the Bridges of Madison County, and it's like you're the Clint Eastwood.
Very much. It's so great. I don't really get to, I love playing these characters that are, on the surface and on the page, you just look at them and you think that they're the bad guy, right? But when you can dive into those characters and expose their humanity, that's so much fun. Mm-hmm. To get to play someone that should be technically the bad guy of the moment or of the entire piece, and turn him into such a human being that the audience has to think about whether they like this character or not. They have to question, well, why? I don't know. They're not so bad. Why am I having sympathy? Why do I have compassion? That's what I want to create, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the conversation, is instead of just a label of bad, it's the human underneath, and that's Raul. Because definitely on the surface, he's don't give him any money. Don't trust him with anything. But that's not who he is at the end of the day, really. These scene by scene, moments to moments, uncovering and discovering of him. I really like him a lot. I care about him, right? I care about. I don't want to give away too much. I care about his family situation. I care about where he's headed next. After all these things that happen, and that's a fantastic, yeah.
You went from being in one of the biggest shows in history,
yeah,
and it's a show about how this country was established.
Yes.
And now you're doing a play that's kind of like at the end of like how this experiment started and how far we've come in so many ways. And I wonder if you have any. This is my Terry Gross moment. If you have any like
absolutely
insights about like the beginning of the country and now the present.
Absolutely. There's and that's it's why I love this play so much, and it's very much part of what drew me to it. Is certainly with Hamilton, it was everybody had a different way of approaching the history as far as how they were going to play their characters based on their actual life stories. I chose to investigate up to what I needed. So because the reality of what people were going to come see was what was written to play on the stage. Not actual history, but what you as an audience were going to experience in those 3 hours with us in that theater. So I would stop at certain points and just not want to learn anymore, because I just needed that much information to play that moment, and that much information to do Satisfied, to do My Shot, just only so much. And I just didn't want to let in too much information. However, when it was over and I went back and I could sort through all these books and really immerse myself in things, and then the world we're living under and in right now, I think it's why I love this piece so much. And I think you have to maybe even see it more than once, because I don't know. I haven't been able to be outside and watch it, but it says so much about how it feels like we've come so far, but how we have not. And that's exactly the kind of conversation I want to be supporting and having. And with Hamilton, it was real life history and in pieces, sort of piecing things together, and then having the perspective, every night playing that story, especially after the election and the impact it was having, playing history now, and then being able to play now, right? And it's really tremendous. And it also is a little terrifying, right? I mean, it's a little like, wow, we have so much work to do. Wow, we have so much further to go. And wow, we have to be even more honest about so many things. And we're doing great right now, but there's still more. There's still more layers. There's still more things to uncover, and it's completely uncomfortable. And that's how it should be.
I've noticed you've been doing quite a bit of advocacy work around protecting Title VII so that employers can't discriminate against people in the LGBTQ community.
Correct.
And so do you see this play as being, which is about, gay men who are starting a family and just living regular lives, you see that as part of that activism?
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of why I really hope we can even get extended. I hope the impact and the buzz about it is exactly that, because it's the most normal story you could ever witness, and the couple just happens to be gay, right? That just happens to be a layer of race in this as well, right? Because there is such a beauty and a comfort and almost a great big exhale in seeing a normal story with a gay couple. Just a normal family story. You could replace any one of them and have it be a man and a woman, and the story will play out pretty much the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that this exists and humanizes everything, instead of the stereotypes, instead of the caricatures, instead of the misinformation and all of the bias and all the things and all of the layers of hatred and judgment and prejudice and homophobia, all the things. It's asking you to sit there and say, this is just a normal family. Yes, exactly that. And in that moment, it absolutely defends what I like to put my energy toward, as far as using my platform to stand up against the idea that an employer could fire their employees simply because they are part of the LGBTQ community.
Something else that I think is normal is the amount of times that I've seen you on the N train.
Oh, no way!
When people are like, we both live in Astoria, and
I love
assuming you're around there. So
I used to be, yeah.
Oh, you left us.
I did. I moved. I left Astoria. Unfortunately, it was for turbulent reasons. After the whole Pence speech and everything at Hamilton, my own personal security became a risk, and my information got doxxed, and I had hate mail come to my doorstep, and I, for my own safety, had to leave my home.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did you stay? Because you seem very positive and optimistic.
Oh, no, I fell apart.
Okay.
I did. I absolutely fell apart. It was so terrifying, and I think a human being can only stay in that mode for so long before cracking. And I was doing my 7 shows a week. I was flying to Toronto to do Shadow Hunters. I was living in a bubble everywhere I went. And I had my mail checked at the theater. I had security with me 90% of the time. Whenever I wasn't on stage and I was out and about in the building or had to go anywhere outside of the building, I stopped doing the stage door. And when you think about all those things, the mind and the heart can only take so much of that before it's like, I can't do this anymore. And so I was already at that threshold of like, I have to get out of the show. I have to leave this situation, this cycle. It's completely unhealthy. And that's when everything started to, and I did leave the show. And just after I left the show is when everything came to my doorstep. And at that point, I was so terrified to leave my home. It was a good 2 weeks before I did. I didn't let anyone in for a week. And I did open an unofficial police investigation to find out how local the threat was. Can't speak too much about that, but we discovered enough to just put a few options on the table. And when I was looking at everything and deciding what to do, it just didn't make any sense to stay in that place anymore. And it broke my heart to leave. But I needed to be safe, and that was the bottom line. And I've moved since, and it took a long time to feel safe where I moved to, because I was still sort of traumatized by everything. But yeah, I absolutely fell apart. And I even did so publicly on social media. That kind of awful pressure and fear and language circulating, around you externally, even if you don't have faces and names, is terrifying to just leave your home sometimes, to get on a train. Why is that person looking at me? Is that a fan? Or is that someone that wants to hurt me? I don't know right now. And I did have a few times on train stations or like platforms or getting on or off a train where someone verbally said something to me, in conjunction with all of that hate and anger towards me. So yes, I very much fell apart, and then I made a public apology, and then I left my old reps because they couldn't really work with me on how to move past that, and I didn't feel safe with them, and I had to reconsider everything. I moved, and I really sat down and said, well, what's worth it now? What's worth it, right? Like, is it just my career as a performer, or is it my activism, or is it both? And if whatever I choose, how do I do this with the wisdom I now have from what I just experienced? And so going forward, it took a long time to come back to my activism. It really did, and it was really terrifying. I haven't really spoken at an event in a long time because I'm still a little scared about that. But I'm still trying to be active, and I'm still supporting organizations, and I'm doing the work that no one's seeing it, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be doing it. Like, do the work, right? Get out there, be part of the things you want to put your energy towards. So I'm still able to do that, but I'm slowly creeping back into the public eye as far as maybe appearing at events and doing things. And certainly my security and my personal security has amped up, and I have a whole new team, and everybody's on board, and everybody knows how to handle all my information, and it's crazy. It's a crazy thing that happened, and I would be lying if I said it doesn't still affect me. It still does, but there's just two choices: either to keep going or to not. And I feel like we live in times where art matters so much. In times like these, art is so vital and important. When you are living in turbulent times like these, art can have such an impact and say so much and do so much. And that's the bottom line. It's just like, I can't give up, I can't hide. I have to get out there, and I have to keep doing what I do.
You're a New Yorker. That's like the worst thing they can do to you.
Yeah.
Like, we know we're not supposed to look at you people like
That's the unspoken rule when you're a New Yorker. You're not saying anything to the celebrities in the scene.
But if you're comfortable sharing,
Yes.
I wonder if there are any show tunes specifically that help you, get that inspiration in the morning to be like, today I'm choosing to keep going again.
I think music in general just gets me going. There's, if anything, it's the days where, and I think every artist goes through this, no matter how much you've accomplished or achieved, you always hit the lows, right? And the lows are terrifying because for some irrational reason, you just think you're never going to work again for the rest of your life, and or all you're going to do is like, I don't know, end up a costume character at some theme park to pay the bills. You know what I mean? You just think all these terrible things, but like, and not that that's terrible because I actually did that in my college years, but those lows need inspiration and inspiring energy, nurturing energy, so that you don't sort of let go, right, of the momentum, because there's supposed to be an ebb and a flow to this, right? So in those times, music gets me through, and I won't lie, like, turning back to things that Lynn and I have done together are always, I mean, I don't always have the words because they're just, I mean, how do you describe, like, there's no word really that describes the experience of revisiting when your dreams came true. Do you know whatever that word is? I don't know what that is, but that's when I pull that music up, and it's like Mandy singing "Breathe," or Mandy and Chris singing something, or Chris singing, Benny's Dispatch, or anything from that original Hamilton, recording, it all, and even stuff that like Lynn and I have done together outside of both of those, demos for animated films that I've, worked with him on and stuff, and like pulling up that stuff, and it's like, this exists and this happened, and that's the inspiration to remember, like, no, you're good, keep going, it's fine, the silence is good. And my mother had gave me the best advice ever. And she and it's so simple, but just when nothing's happening, stay still, right? And not like don't like go out and exercise and eat or do anything, but like don't try to always make something happen. Sometimes when things are not happening, be still, just for that moment, because something's coming, right? It's like, because I've found that in those times, if I try too hard to make something happen, it's not always the smartest idea.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering, since people have come to expect for you to replace the character that Lynn's playing.
I know.
Are there any characters that you would love to see him play specifically, just so you know you're playing it next?
Don Quixote. That's my dream role.
Based on the New Englanders that asked the question, like, are you where you want to be?
Yeah, that's such a powerful theme of the show, and to answer that question, yes and no, right? I mean, it's I don't know that there's, the highest of highs was Hamilton for sure, and even in that first year of taking over and just feeling really on top of the world, it still was missing things, right? There were still parts of my life that were missing, right? Not as nurtured. And then the opposite, right? Like, I took a good long chunk of time to rest and heal and recover from those 3 years, and I did a lot more camera work. But really, from the holidays till now, all I did was working at City Center and a few readings, nothing really major, and those times feeling like, oh, this is exactly what I need. But then what's missing? Well, work. So there. I think in the bigger sense, I'm where I want to be because I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. And as difficult as it is, I'm really working at doing it my way as opposed to the expectations of my type and of my gender and of my sexuality, that those sort of frameworks that exist in this industry that you sort of have to make yourself mold into are not for me. So I'm really trying to do this my way, and I'm still able to do it, and that's extraordinary, I think. And so I feel like in that sense, yeah, I'm exactly where I want to be. But then when we get to the details, I could lose a few more pounds. I wouldn't mind a little, more cream on the eyes. No, but you know what I mean? Like, there's always little things. There's always smaller things that are like, yeah, that needs work and that needs work, and I can add that into my life. And but overall, to be able to say that I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing with my life and in my life is extraordinary.
Javier, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
it's
y'all.
a pleasure. Would you like to invite our viewers and our listeners to go see your show?
Thank you. Please do.
Yes.
Thank you for watching. And if you want more Token Theater friends, we have a podcast. And speaking of Lin-Manuel Miranda, this week we're reviewing Freestyle Love Supreme.
I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry.
I'm not even, yeah. Better you than me. Because that was less embarrassing. So listen to that wherever you get podcasts, and let us know what shows you want us to cover as the season ramps up. And remember, theater's more fun when you take a friend. Bye.